This is my younger brother with his family, which includes my sister-in-law, my 2 nieces, and my nephew. Like myself, my brother's a private pilot, and whenever we can, we like to introduce others to the pleasures of flying. Here we can see how much his eldest daughter enjoyed it when he took her up. So how do I get from this great video of my niece flying to building a cockpit for my nephew? Well, let me introduce you to my sister-in-law. She's a fantastic mother, excellent horse riding instructor, and skilled show jumper. Just like her husband, she likes to introduce people to her hobby. Pretty much, once the girls discovered that they could dress up, and dress the horses up, interest in flying was really reduced. Not really a worry though, as I figured we've still got the nephew. But then on Facebook, I started to see photos like this. The little guy was enjoying the horses way too much. Something had to be done. So I started to think, what could I, an uncle that lives 3,000 miles away, do to help this situation? So what did I have as a child that really kept my interest in flying? In 1974, it was air fixed flight deck. All the thrills and excitement of landing a fighter jet on an aircraft carrier. What more could a boy want? So off I went to the Toys R Us website, credit card in hand, ready to purchase the latest and greatest cockpit. What do I find? Nothing. Some models which are fantastic, some posters, but no cockpit. So where to look next? eBay. Let's see what's on there. Well, it turns out you can find lots of toys from the 50s and 60s that are focused on cockpits, but not much in the later years. Whilst poking around eBay, however, I did discover this ATC 510, a bona fide FAA certified simulator from the 70s, and up until the last minute, it was valued at $5. Then in that last minute, it jumped to $400. A little steep for me. So what was I to do? The ATC 510 looked the perfect size for a child, yet I couldn't find anything like it available today. Then I remembered Jeff Highsmith. He's the guy that did that video for Make, where he makes his Kids Room Spaceship. So I figured, how hard could it be? I've got a drill, I've got some drill bits, I've got a soldering iron, and I've even got some spare space on my dining room table. I'm sure I could make a kid's cockpit. So over a few months I started to collect panels and instruments from eBay. I'd put in bids at the last minute and try and get good deals. I even managed to find some cheap coffee coasters to fill in the instruments I was missing. I wanted the cockpit to have sound, so I purchased a Raspberry Pi that I'd hook into the switches and the panels and use to do sound effects. I also purchased some micro servers so that I could use the Raspberry Pi to rotate some of the instrument dials. Along with the servos, I also purchased an Adafruit 16-channel 12-bit PWM I2C interface to make it easier to control the servos from the Raspberry Pi. First thing I needed to do was figure out some of the wiring on the Boeing switches, as I wanted to be able to use these switches to control the sounds in the Raspberry Pi. Now, I said I had a soldering iron, but that doesn't mean I was any good with it. Fortunately, 50 plus years ago my dad was a radar engineer in the Royal Air Force, so he was visiting with my mother for a few weeks, so I made him responsible for the wiring. I used 1/4-inch plywood where I cut out the holes for the different gauges and the switch panels. I purchased a cheap 12-volt rear view display for a car and sprayed the plywood black. We built the sides and the base of the simulator out of an oak board I had lying around, and then started to mount the instruments and the switch panels into the casing. The Boeing switches were backlit, and we made a throttle lever out of PVC plumbing piping. We connected the instruments to the Pi, some of them using servos to randomly rotate the dials, and some dials, such as the air, temperature and manifold pressure, I found we could move just by altering the voltage that the Pi sent to the different gauges. Some switches were connected directly to turn lights on and off, and others were connected to the Pi to play sounds.
I'm moving steady at 50 miles per hour, ready when you are. World Travel 268, Juliana Tower, wind 121 at 12, runway 9 clear to land. Traffic is a Grumman. We're on course, I can't see the runway, but we're past the threshold. We're gonna have to go around.
With padding added around the edges, and a metal mesh and a power switch added to the rear, it was now time to put it in a suitcase and take it to England for Christmas. My nephew pretty quickly figured out how to turn it on, and has even started to supplement the sounds with his own.
Let's talk to it and get the mission ready for takeoff.
One of the nicest things to come out of this project is that now my niece appears to enjoy playing with the flight simulator as much as my nephew. How proud can an uncle be when his niece can identify the planes in the pictures?
The red arrows.
You like the red arrows, don't you?
Set flaps 30 and
What's that one?
Vulcan.
The Vulcan! Is it?
I hope you've enjoyed our project. Wishing you all safe and smooth flights.